Hey everybody, Sean here from VidGamiac.com. Here we are today doing the fully yoked update for Grounded, and we're going for the Royal Arrangements achievement. This is to take care of all three of the ant queens on the map. So in other words, we are going to either need to befriend, kill, or infect them. So the quickest of the three is going to be to befriend them, which is going to be what we're going to be doing right here. So to befriend them, you're going to need to craft three very specific recipes. To kick things off, we're going to start out by grabbing the ingredient that all three of these recipes have in common, which is going to be aphid honeydew. We're going to need a total of 12 in order to make all three. Aphid honeydew should be common enough where you should be able to find it all of the time during your travels. If you are wondering how it spawns, they're basically going to spawn from aphids. So aphids should randomly drop them. So if you find an aphid, if you follow it around long enough, eventually it's going to spit out a piece of honeydew that you can grab. It should also be a rare loot item for killing aphids, so if you plan on doing aphid hunting, you can also try to hope that the ones you kill drop them as well. Now, if you are having trouble, do keep in mind that aphids are going to have a higher chance of dropping honeydew if they are around clover. So I'm going to recommend that you head over to this area, which is going to be immediately to the east of the starting area. Over here is going to be this watery area with a bunch of clover. I'm going to recommend you check this area during the early morning. You should have a bunch of aphid encounters, and then behind them, hopefully, should be a bunch of aphid honeydew drops. So make sure you grab them from the ground, or make sure you try to follow some of the aphids around or hunt them if that's more your style, and you should be able to grab the honeydews as you are trekking along through this part of the game. Of course, do feel free to reuse any aphid honeydew you may have left over from the base game or any of the other previous updates. Again, it's going to be a very common item, but you are going to need a dozen for this specific achievement. So once that's taken care of, we're going to start out by tackling our first recipe. This is going to require that you have the haze chip already. Once you have the haze chip, make sure you head to any field station and go to the ASL computer. Then right here, you should be able to buy the recipe in the form of Friendship Offering Red Ant Queen. Make sure you buy that for 2,500 raw science. And then once you back out, you should be able to craft this recipe now, which is going to give us the juicy mushroom sandwich. So alongside the aphid honeydew, we're going to need two other ingredients for this particular recipe. The first of the two is going to be apple bits. You're going to find these by destroying apple cores, which can be located wherever you find rotten food. Do keep in mind they are going to be interchangeable with hot dogs and cookies, so the spawn location may or may not vary for you. Personally, I found my apple core on the picnic table area, but do look around wherever you may find hot dogs or cookies as well. Your game might shift the various rotten food items around slightly. But nonetheless, once you do find an apple, you're going to need at least a tier 2 axe in order to destroy it. Once you break it down, it should drop its bits. There's going to be three different types. You're going to have regular, fresh, and rotten. You're going to need two regular ones. So make sure you do keep that in mind. They are not going to be interchangeable with one another. You specifically need two regular ones. Lastly, the third ingredient that we need for this first recipe is going to be mushrooms. We're going to need the small-sized mushrooms, which are going to be very common. Best place to look for them is going to be over by the starting area. You're going to want to look for the strange machine, which is going to be probably the most notable landmark in the game. This should be surrounded by a bunch of toadstools as well as small mushrooms underneath them. You're going to want these small size mushrooms. We're just going to need a handful, so make sure you grab 5, and then we should be good for our first recipe. Head back to base. You're going to need to put these in an oven. So this recipe is going to call for 2 aphid honeydew. You're going to need 2 apple bits, and you're going to need 5 mushrooms. Make sure you put those in an oven, and you should have the recipe available to you after you have bought it from the ASL. And then once you pop these in, you're going to have to wait for them to cook. This is going to take a while, so if you want to be efficient, you can move on to the next recipe as this is baking. But nonetheless, once you have this thing fully cooked, just make sure you take it out of the oven, and then we're going to need to look for the ant queen in order to feed this to her. So once you have the juicy mushroom sandwich in hand, we're going to head on over to the red ant hill, which is going to be right here. It's going to be slightly north of the starting area. This is going to be the border of the original map and the haze area. Make sure you try to look for the ant hill and then make sure you head on inside. I do recommend bringing a torch along as you're going to need to light the way, but make sure you head on inside. We're going to have a few soldier ants that we need to deal with. The worker ants shouldn't aggro on us as long as we leave them alone, so just make sure you try to steer past the soldier ants and then make sure you don't hit any of the worker ants. Once the cave opens up a bit right here, we're going to stick to the right path, so make sure you don't take a dip down. And then once you get to this fork, make sure you hang around this column, and then just make sure you stay on the straight and narrow. Once you get to this area with the infection, you're going to want to scoot past this. Make sure you don't have the spores kill you, so put your guard up or try to get them to detonate away from you. But we're going to wrap around here. Once you notice the slime mold, you should be able to climb up here. There's going to be this new cavern that was added during this update. You should be able to slide on through here, and this is going to basically lead you to the Queen's Chamber. So once you get past this area right here, you're going to have this path that leads you further into the cavern, and then once you get to the end of this thing and everything gets all lit up, you should notice the Queen here. The Ant Queen is always going to be a harmless NPC, so we don't have to worry about her aggroing on us. Just go up to her, hit the X button to offer her our sandwich, hit the A button a few times to confirm it. You should give her the juicy mushroom sandwich, and that should befriend her. In return, she's going to give you a baby ant, which you can have as a pet. You should also be given this mutation, which is going to be called Antbassador. Tier 1 of this mutation is going to make it where no red ants in the game should attack you, so make sure you feel free to equip that, especially during our trip back out of the cave. Moving on to recipe number 2, this one's going to require that you have the sandbox chip already picked up. Once you have that, make sure you head to any field station, go over to the ASL machine, and then what you want to do is make sure you buy this one. This one is going to be the Friendship Offering Black Ant Queen. It's also going to cost 2,500 raw science. Buying this one is going to give you the recipe for the yummy gum sandwich, so make sure you pocket that. Then it's going to be off to look for the ingredients. First one up is going to be cookie sandwich bits. These are going to be found by breaking cookie sandwiches, which are going to be located wherever you can find rotten food. So anywhere where apples or hot dogs can also spawn, you are going to have a chance of having a cookie sandwich appear. Personally, for me, I found mine over by where the Jabby Cola can is in the northwestern part of the starting area. You are going to need a tier 2 hammer in order to break the cookie sandwiches, but make sure you smash them down to their bits. Just like the other ones, you're going to have 3 variants. You're going to have regular, fresh, and rotten. Just like the previous recipe, you're going to need 2 regular ones, so make sure you do distinguish that among the 3 and you grab 2 of the right one. Last ingredient for the second recipe is going to be gum nuggets. You're going to need 5 of these. These can be found by breaking up pieces of chewed gum. The best place to find them is going to be underneath the bench at the southern part of the starting area. They should be attached here, and you should be able to reach these with relative ease. You can also find these underneath the picnic table, so make sure you try to give that a go if you don't have enough. But you are going to need a tier 2 shovel in order to break up the wads. Once you break them up, they should drop down, and you're going to want to catch them along the way or chase them after. Again, hopefully you find your wads in areas that aren't going to be too high up and that you can grab easily after you do break the wad. It should take about 2 or 3 wads or so to get enough, but once you have all of your ingredients, which is going to be 5 honeydew, 2 cookie sandwich bits, and 5 gum nuggets, you're going to want to bring those back to wherever your oven is. Make sure you stick them in, make sure you click on the recipe, and that should cook your yummy gum sandwich after a very long amount of time. Make sure you try to find something productive to do while this is cooking, but while it's cooking, you should be good for it as soon as you come back once it's done. Once you pull it out of the oven, we should have our sandwich in hand, ready to befriend our next ant queen, which is going to be the Black Ant Queen, which is going to be located at the Black Ant Hill. Do keep in mind the Black Ant Hill is going to have 2 entrances. We're going to go with the one in the sandbox. The ant-hole entrance is going to be over where the blue block is near the field station. There's a couple of ways of getting there. You can try to make the journey across the desert, which I'm going to recommend you bring some sizzle protection armor or wait until it's nighttime so you can avoid the heat damage, or you can just stay on the rim and then dandelion tuft your way down. Make sure once you hit the sand, you quickly get underground so the sun and the heat don't kill you, and then once you are inside, it's time to navigate. Once again, I recommend bringing a torch because underground is always going to be super duper dark. So make sure you try to get through this initial cave right here. What's going to happen is you're going to get to this opening where you're going to notice this destroyed tube. That's how you know you're heading in the right direction. Continue to follow the linear path until the cave opens up a little more. Once you see the light, we're going to take the higher path right here. So take this ramp up, and this is going to wrap around. You should be able to have this string of lights right here. We're going to follow this for a significant amount of time. So make sure you just follow the string of lights, and you shouldn't get lost. It's also going to be lit up along the way, so you have that to look forward to. But once you get to this open area, we're going to ignore all of the man-made structures, and we're going to continue to follow the string of lights. Once you get to this slime mold, the path is going to branch off right here. We're going to continue to follow the string of lights, which is going to lead to this man-made structure right over here. Once you notice this tube, we're going to take a hard right. So follow the wall along until you are able to head up this small ramp. There should be some more slime molds here to guide you. Once you are in this cave, we're going to follow this until it opens up. Once you get to this big open area, you should notice a door in the background. We're going to drop down this side, and we're going to hug the right wall. This is going to lead to this entrance right here. Make sure you head on through. Eventually, things should open back up, and we're going to have the Ant Queen chamber. Make sure you head up to her. Again, hit the X button, and then make sure you feed her the sandwich. Hit A a bunch of times to confirm. So you should befriend her, and she should also give you the black baby ant, which you can have as a pet in return. You should also get an upgrade towards the ambassador mutation, which is going to apply its effect to black ants. So you have that to look forward to, and of course we're going to have the long road back home. So best of luck trying to navigate your way back outside. Once you finally make it back to the surface, we're going to then head over to our nearest field station so we can work on the third recipe. This one's going to require that you have the stump chip. Once you have that, go over to the ASL, go into the shop, and make sure you buy the friendship offering Fire Ant Queen, also 2500 raw science. Once you have that, we're going to then work on the ingredients. So we're going to try to get the most annoying ingredient out of the way first, which is going to be donut chunks. Now, just like apple and cookie sandwich bits, we're going to have 3 different versions we could pick up: regular, fresh, and rotten. We're going to need regular for the recipe. Now, unfortunately, contrary to all reasoning that we have learned so far, breaking donuts is never going to drop regular donut chunks that we need for the recipe. It's only going to drop fresh and rotten ones. So we are going to need to get regular ones another way. Thankfully, whenever you do head over to a donut, you should notice it's going to be surrounded most of the time with fire ants. A fire ant who's going to be harvesting a donut should be carrying a regular donut chunk on it. So if you do notice one of these fire ants, make sure you try to get it to drop it, or make sure you kill it and then harvest it for the regular donut chunk. But you are going to need to hope that you get a bunch per donut. The 2 places to find donuts are going to be just south of the fire ant hill, and then right over here to the left of Castle Molderock. So make sure you look at these 2 areas. I'm going to recommend that you leave the donut intact and then jump into the donut hole, and that's going to give you a nice little trap to work with, because that's going to be where most of the fire ants are going to spawn, and you should be able to knock them out, and then hopefully one of them is going to be carrying the regular donut chunks. Thankfully, you just need 2 of them, so if you can manage 1 per donut, that should suffice for our recipe. If you are still struggling and are desperate, donut chunks are also going to be a rare drop from meaty gnats, so head on over to the trash heap and start hunting if you can't find any near any donuts. Now, before we tackle our final ingredient, I am going to recommend that you stock up on dandelion tufts for this one, as we are going to need them because they are going to be in a very high precarious place. So make sure you chop down a dandelion stem, grab the tufts that drop along the flower bit, and then we're going to take these along with us as our next recipe ingredient is going to be toenails. And the best place to find toenails, of course, is going to be over on the shed porch. We're going to need to head up to the north. We're going to take the bicycle up to the shed porch, and then we're going to then head to the back. Our goal is going to be to get up to the patio table. This is going to require that we get to the back of the porch, and then we're going to follow the hose that's going to be here. This is going to wrap around the right side of the shed, and that's going to be where we need to start climbing. So if we jump onto the hose and then we follow this thing going to the right, it's going to start snaking around here. Once it turns, we're going to notice there's going to be a can right here. Make sure you jump on to the bottom of the can. That's going to allow you to jump onto this baseball bat right here. You're going to follow the baseball bat, and this is going to take you to the armrest of the chair. You should be able to dismount onto the armrest. Then we're going to need to slide down onto the seat of the chair. This is going to be where the dandelion tufts come in handy. You should be able to survive a drop from here, though, but we are going to want to try to do this without taking too much fall damage. So make sure you take your time, line up the soft landing, and then if you can, stick it, dandelion tuft or not. We're going to need to do a big running jump to get onto this ball peen hammer right here. So we're going to need a running jump. I'm going to recommend you look up whenever making this jump. Hopefully you clear it and without too many of the ants chasing you. Make sure you get to the top of the handle, and then we're going to then drop down onto the opposite armrest. Then we're going to need to do a big running jump, and then at the apex of our jump, we're going to need to dandelion tuft our way over to the table. You should be able to barely make it. If you do stick the landing, make sure you jump over the pipe. Make sure you get onto the set of nail clippers, and then you should be able to take this into the ashtray. In there should be some toenails for us to harvest. We're going to need a tier 3 hammer in order to break these into a harvestable resource. So make sure you equip that, and then make sure you break the nails. We're going to need only 2 pieces, so thankfully there should be more than enough here. Once you take care of that, it's going to be over to the oven. Our final ingredient list should be our remaining 5 pieces of honeydew, 2 donut chunks regular, and then we're going to have the 2 pieces of toenail. Stick those in the oven and let these bake, of course, and out should come our final sandwich in the form of the tasty toe jam sandwich. So once you have this, we're going to head on over to the next ant queen in the form of the fire ant queen, who's going to be located in the northeastern part of the yard. It's going to be right here. This is going to be south of the stump area. Once you get to here, you're going to want to look for the jar of sour candies. That's going to point you towards the direction of the entrance of the anthill. So we're going to want to drop on down. You are going to be able to drop down once here into this part. Make sure you mind the fire ant soldiers. They are going to pack a wall up. But make sure you continue to drop down, and then once you notice this doll head right here, you're going to want to go towards its left, which is going to take you right to the queen's chamber. So thankfully this one isn't going to take too much spelunking to get to. So once you get down here, equip a torch so you can see things a little better, but it's going to be a straight shot over to where the last queen is going to be. What you want to do is make sure you do the same thing like you did with the last 2. Head up to her, hit the X button to offer your sandwich. Then it's going to be the A button a couple of times in order to confirm. Once you feed her the sandwich, that should befriend her. That should be all 3 of the ant queens befriended and taken care of. You should be given another pet ant, as well as the last upgrade to the mutation. But more importantly, you should be given this achievement right here. 100 gamer score for this one. And that's all there is to it.